And I'm so excited to have Georgia Blanchford on, a dear friend whom I met in Tulum. And Georgia, I want to start with asking you, who were you before the you that you are now?
Mm, wow. I think for so long, the person that I was so identified with the outside world versus really anchoring in the unchanging, infinite parts of myself that I truly am. But long before I started my spiritual journey, I was a total overachiever. I always had perfect grades. I went to Yale University for undergrad, started in Wall Street right out of college. And this was not like a burning passion of mine. But frankly, I went into that path because it's what everyone else was doing and it was going to make me a lot of money and give me some type of esteem socially. And, after years kind of going down that path, eventually moving to San Francisco to work in Silicon Valley, I realized that I had everything that I was supposed to want on the outside, but I actually didn't know who I was. So it's really interesting that you asked me this question, like, who was I before? And the answer was like, I had no idea who I was. And I had a lot of accolades and I had a really good resume. But ultimately there was a lot of separation. There was a lot of shame. There was a lot of pain. Like a lot of
Mhm.
us who have transmuted these um, throughout our journeys. So that kind of gives you a little window into who I was before. And I definitely was
Mm.
operating in a place of like hyper vigilance, hyper masculinity, very activated nervous system. Because it's like, I remember I'm 22 years old. I started my first job out of college, and they say, you need to respond to any email within an hour. That means you can get an email at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they expect you to respond to it within an hour, right? So even when you're sleeping, you can't truly rest. So there was something in me that
Mm.
knew that that wasn't normal, and I didn't totally subscribe to it in a deeper level, but it it took a lot of re-regulation, a lot of um, deep restoration coming out of that environment. A lot different than who I am now.
Wow. So why did you go down that path? Why do you think people go down that path initially?
Well, there's I think that we're kind of misguided thinking that the external can validate what's inside. And, people will say that, you know, you'll feel a certain way once you've done something or once you have something, that it starts from the outside. Um, and, I thought if I made a lot of money, I would be set up for success, you know? However, like the definition of success is really actually personal. So I had success, I had a stable job, I had a nice place to live, but I couldn't sleep at night. I was under a lot of stress. Like I did not have a close relationship to myself. In fact, like I actually self-loathing was something that I experienced throughout my life. And yeah, I think another, I mean, another reason why I went into this path, like I kind of said before, was just following the crowd. And that was definitely a
Mm.
symptom of kind of the pain that I was in my life. A lot of time I just um, gave gave my I willingly gave my power away so I wouldn't have to make hard decisions and I didn't have to think for myself. It was almost easier to be, that high achiever doing what everyone else was doing than to actually sit down with myself and say, what does my heart want? Right? Because that can be painful. It requires a conversation with yourself and you don't know how that conversation is going to go. But ultimately, once I started asking those questions, things did start to change in my life.
Mm. Wow. So, how did you identify that something needed to change? And
Mm,
what would be your suggestion for anyone else who's maybe not there yet, and they're like, they're kind of in it, they're in their stuff and they're in their life, and they're not able to separate themselves enough to identify that, man, you know what, I'm not happy. I don't feel fulfilled. Something's got to change. So how did you identify that, and then what would you recommend to others?
Yeah. For me, when I started my spiritual journey and my journey of self-development, I thought that there was something deeply wrong with me and that I was broken. Because even though I had all of these things, I was so disconnected from myself and my reason for being here. And what started as like self-development as a way of improving myself because I thought I was broken. I was like, I'm just broken. Let me just fix myself. Started me on this journey of like actually truly connecting to the divinity within me, which is the same divinity that's in you, the same divinity that's in everyone on this planet, right? And my own magnificence and my co-creative power and the unique gifts that I have in this lifetime that I'm meant to share. So that was really what inspired my journey, was thinking that I was broken. Now, I don't think has that has to be the path, but the second part of your question, that's actually really confronting to be like, my life's not, like there's something, things aren't working. I'm not happy. I don't like my job. I'm unhappy in my marriage, and I'm going to change everything. That is so confronting. That's completely reality shattering. And for a lot of people, like it's going to kind of end the conversation, because it's like now you're not just talking about growing, you're talking about like completely shattering life as you know it in order to make space for something new. Similarly, just side note, this is why you see people who go through like really dramatic life circumstances, whether it's loss or divorce or getting fired from their job, to have awakenings, because their reality gets shattered, and all they can do is start asking questions and getting curious about how fragile our egos actually are, like what we hold on to actually is. But my suggestion for people who are getting started on this journey, I have a few. I think one thing is like starting small and build trust with yourself by making small, consistent changes over time. Meditation, yoga, like these are practices that you can build into your life that in time they will reveal to you, like they will open up over time. It won't, not just going into the jungle and like drinking 10 cups of ayahuasca and just completely shattering your entire reality. I'm not saying don't do that, but building a relationship to yourself, your soul, and to the divine through a practice. I was meditating for years before I quit my job and started traveling. And it was a huge teacher for me. I think another thing is like remembering your why. I guess establishing a why you're working on yourself, remembering it, and anchoring it towards self-love and doing something kind for yourself. Because there's going to be challenging moments in anyone's development journey, anyone's growth journey, activation, awakening journey. And when you can remember, like, I'm doing this for me because I am worthy of more, because I have a big purpose in this lifetime. And, even if you only believe that 10%, if you can anchor to that 10%, it will grow over time. And my third suggestion would be bringing in nervous system regulation, right? And really bringing safety into your body when you're starting to make big changes in your awareness and your consciousness. Because it's very activating once you start to expand your mind and make changes in your life. So bringing safety into the body. Rest and digest. Parasympathetic nervous system is going to give you the baseline that you need to like really grow in a healthy way. And ways of doing that, it's just like what I said: meditation, breath work, mindfulness. So you can be like really anchored in yourself and not be just responding from an activated, stressed state.
Mm, that's beautiful. So, like you've mentioned a lot of the tools. Um, can you share any other kind of struggles or obstacles that you actually had to break through to get to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. there, there've been, there've been a lot of like a lot of challenges throughout my journey. And what I love about ascension is that as you grow, you realize how every challenge was so necessary and so vital to the evolution of the soul and to the evolution of, or at least for myself. Some of the struggles, um, like I, I experienced. One was regards to codependency. So, as an empathetic or an empath, a sensitive person, I'm an intuitive person. My whole life, I've always been able to really well perceive the emotions of other people. And the way that this manifested in like my young adulthood was really like kind of like being able to work a room, making sure everyone's satisfied all the time, but it's incredibly draining. It's incredibly draining to be kind of mediating everyone else's emotions all the time. And frankly,
Mm,
it it made it harder for me to be authentic. At least the way that I expressed my codependency was a lot of people pleasing, a lot of like, what can I say that will, cause this person to feel this way or to think this way about me. I wasn't insourcing my value, and I put a lot of people's emotions and needs ahead of my own. So this was a really big, um, like a lot of material for me to work with on my journey. So because of that
mm,
struggle, I really learned how to set powerful boundaries. And as an intuitive person, boundaries are like what really allow your power to concentrate because you're not leaking so often. Once you have
mm,
boundaries, you really can get that power more concentrated and get clear on what it is that you want to create because you're not just kind of spilling out. So that's one struggle I had, codependency.
mm. Wow. And is there any other kind of anything that you would share that would maybe go against conventional wisdom or even some myths out there as it pertains to developing and really stepping into peak performance in your life?
Mm, let me think about this for a minute. Anything that's good, that's like unconventional.
Yeah, that would go against conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
Like an example is, conventional wisdom says you should work 12 hours a day so that you set yourself up for success to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just so funny because I feel like what we consider like our standards are so different than the average person that I just assume everyone thinks sometimes like the way that we do. But yeah, I think like conventional, like there is no conventional wisdom, right? And we're relearning everything and just giving yourself permission to give yourself permission to question and create your own standards and what feels good for you, right? That's what I have to say because, I know I'm not the only person that has gone the traditional route and been successful and then realized that, you know, it wasn't all was, it wasn't all that what's the expression? All
All
it's
was
like,
cracked up to be.
wait, what was the word?
All was cracked up to be.
Cracked up to be. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Um, it's we live in such an exciting time, right? People say this, the age of Aquarius, where the way that society operates is being completely turned on its head. And this is like a thousands of years process, and we are just starting it, which means that you don't just have to wait and see how things are going to be shaken up, but you actually get to be a part of what that shakeup looks like, right? And
Mhm.
so my invitation is to start to think about what you think the world should be and the change that you want to see in the world, as opposed to just allowing yourself to just absorb the opinions of other people, and just believing that things are just the way that they are, because nothing is. And you actually get to decide what the future is going to be like for yourself, but also for the world.